conversation with.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining in. Welcome to another session of In Conversation with. We are Art and Artisans, and I'm Priyanshi, a visual artist based in India. And today we have Mai Wada with us. Also, we are in conversation with Anastasia Kokori. She will be joining in shortly. And it's going to be a conversation about quite an interesting project that they both collaborated, artist and astronomer. First of all, thank you for doing this for us. Let me give a quick introduction about Mai. So she did her post-graduation in MA Painting at University of the Arts London and BA Fine Arts at Kyoto University Seika in 2017. She seeks the revelation of unconscious, invisible, and spiritual through painting, thus exploring both scientific and the divine. Her gestural oil paintings of distant planets, figurative forms, powerful landscapes, or unidentified creatures demonstrate her desire to understand the nature of the mysterious world around her. So we welcome you, Mai, and let's just dive into the session. So Mai, I've always seen you painting since we have met, and I often wonder what is it that keeps you going? And have you ever faced any creative block throughout your art practice?
So, firstly, thanks for having me. And personally, I haven't felt any blogs about my paintings, and I've been keep going because I feel something pushed me. So, painting is my way of exploring the world, nature. So, actually, I do paint, for example, the human face, or I don't know, something about astronomy. But everything about my painting is my curiosity. I describe subjects throughout painting activity. So I think my exploration will continue as long as I alive. Is that
Wow,
convenient?
yeah,
Yeah.
it does make sense. How was your experience working on the exoplanet project? And what have you discovered? Has it helped you? Has it helped your practice to evolve? What was the role of that project in your journey?
I I think space is one most interesting subject because we don't know more than 90% about space, and there is new natural law, so we haven't experienced. So I'm just curious, first of all, and also my collaborators. So the astronomer, they help my, how can I say, they give me inspiration. So I don't know, as a as an artist, I imagine in future, so we need to have more connection with other planets, stars, universe, space. But I, so how can I say, now the space exploration is not very normalized to us general people, but as an artist, maybe I instinctively thought that kind of future, so predict that kind of future is painting for my future and future understanding for new children, new generations. So now, for example, I'm working on children's book, and me and my collaborator really hope our work will reach more and more children, and they will feel familiar with space. So yeah.
That's interesting. It's really interesting. So, okay, everyone, we have Anastasia Kokori here. She is an astronomer at Royal Observatory Greenwich and a planetary scientist in training at Birkbeck University of London. She is a graduate of Space Studies program and also holds an MSc in Science Communication from Dublin City University. She is an expert in using telescopes for exoplanet observations and astrophotography. So we welcome you, Anastasia.
Thank you so
So,
much. I'm very happy to be with you.
yeah, I read your project and it was really interesting. So let's just talk a little bit about the exoplanet project, what it is, what inspired you to begin with this research, and why did you specifically choose an artist for collaboration?
All right, so let's start with the definition of exoplanets because I'm not sure that everyone knows what an exoplanet is. So we know very well the planets of our solar system. We, as Earth, the planet Earth is part of our solar system with 8 planets in total. But we know now, like the last 20 years, that there are more planets out there. So we know that the other stars that we're looking up in the sky that have at least one planet. So imagine that this is quite like a big revolution for science and astronomy, because we realize that we're not the only solar system, we're not the only planetary system. So I started having a look on these kind of things and the other planets when I was in my first degree, my undergraduate degree in Thessaloniki in Greece, where it was nothing to do with that. Like I studied to become a teacher, a primary school teacher. So it was really irrelevant, but I had an astronomer professor. So I realized that astronomy is really my thing. And exoplanets was really an interesting field because while you're studying other planets and other planetary systems, you're realizing that we, first of all, as planet Earth, we're not the only planet, or our solar system is not the only solar system. And it's curiosity. You are starting realizing and starting having thoughts about these planets and how they would look like, what they're made of, if they're like the Earth or like the other planets, if they can host life. So all of these questions were really the main thing, the main inspiration that started like influencing me. And then about the artist that you said and you asked. So it's very interesting because in astronomy, many things, and I think in general in science, are not really visible. So you have to use your imagination a lot. And then in general, in nature, many things are hidden. You're not sure about the reality, let's say, of these things. So exoplanets was such a thing that combined so many different concepts and things that we don't know. We have to use our imagination. We have to use predictions, calculations, things that are really like man-made and man-oriented, human-oriented, let's say. And I think the best thing to do is to combine all the different forces, and art is one force, in order to visualize such things, because we haven't seen these planets. We know they are there, but the main way that we're discovering them is while they're passing in front of the stars, they're dropping the light of these stars, so we don't really see them. So you can imagine how many things we know, but at the same time, we don't know. So I think that was the main motivation, combine our forces and let's say try to find out what is there, what is really out there, even with our limitations as humans.
Perfect. So this question is both for you and Mai. So
Yeah.
how was the process like, and what were the outcomes, and what are the application you think of this research will be in near future?
The process that we have been working with is not really standard, it's dynamic, it's changing all the time depending on the project, on the needs, on the thoughts, on all these things that are really all the time changing. But if you want really an answer or like a brief answer of what the process was, is that we have an idea, we have um, let's say a scientific and astronomy oriented topic that is not really visible, like exoplanets. We start from this, and then we continue by trying to answer all the things that cannot be answered through science. So art comes there, and answers all these things, or is trying to answer the things that science cannot answer, like how does it look like, how can we visualize it, is it something specific that we can't really do, is something that only art can do. All these things are all the time changing, and I think it's really important to have communication, like all the time, continuous continuous dialogue, and like I'm asking questions, Mai is asking, and all the time we're trying to interact rather than just you do your thing, I do my thing. I think this is the most important thing: interaction and communication. I don't like Mai, you can add if you want.
If I add something to her answer, so I would say art has the power to move, how can I say, to make someone's mind move, how can I say, give her inspiration, move somebody. So like, for example, planetary interior is very interesting topic. So, and now we are doing a kind of children, we are working on the project about children book. We are making a children book about asteroid. And there is a page about planetary interior. I painted anatomy of the Earth. So now I'm working in an open studio. So in a local city, the local people can access my studio anytime, and they can see my paintings and they can chat with me. Then this painting is the planetary interior I painted. So locals here, the Japanese locals, they don't know what's the anatomy of the planet, or they don't have any scientific knowledge, but that painting gives them inspiration, and many locals show the interest about science and astronomy. And I think this is one of the essential things what we want to do. So her research is quite clear, and as I said, our process is quite interactive. So we're always communicating. It's very, how can I say, humanity way of cooperation. So we are human, we have low emotions, and we don't remove these, how can I say, these extra things out of our projects. So we always communicate, we always see dreams and imagine. So that kind of childish stuff, adults say. So we just put importance on these things, and anyway, we have a love. I think that is the most important thing. And that love is actually, how can I say, moving somebody's mind. This is our project, I think.
Yes, you just show the drawing of a planetary interior, and what this is what we imagine, and we are really thinking of a planet inside, what it looks inside, and that was the Earth. I mean, imagine there are so many planets out there, and we don't even know how they look from the exterior part, like how they look, their surfaces. We can just imagine them. And I think this is really important, what Mai showed, that art comes there not only to contribute to science and to contribute to the real scientific part of what it looks like, so we can visualize and start like put things and say, okay, it's like the core, the layers, and then the outer part. But it's really important at the same time for people, as she said, like for people that are not really connected with science, but science is part of our lives. So I think this is something different as well. It's another benefit of this collaboration, that we can really communicate that and pass it, transfer it to people that are not really working on that part. Because science is out there, like nature, the environment, everything is really connected with us. So it's really important to transfer and pass this message to as many people as possible.
And how were you mapping so obviously it seems that these paintings are kind of imaginative, but was there any process where the data was kind of accurate? Because I mean, anyone can imagine this, but there has to be some
Yep.
way where you are mapping the exact size or the shape or the color of that planet. So
Yeah,
how that happened?
I want to answer about this question. So we've started a project since I think in 2018. So when I was studying in London, then we met at Royal Observatory, and after there's an Anastasia, so she told me a lot of things about. She answered all questions that I asked her, like about planets and astronomy, because I didn't know anything about astronomy. I was just like a kid, and as she says, so I think she's talented at teaching. So she didn't, she didn't teach me normally the informational things, but also she taught me how to research it by myself. So some specific scientific data that she sent me, but otherwise, so I'm researching by myself using internet or how can I say, using some platform. So everything I learned from Anna. So I so appreciate to her as an artist as well.
Were there any drawings involved? What sort of data were you guys sharing?
I think that was a really important part that you asked, Pri, because as you said, Mai is an artist, doesn't have the background, or yes, you can use your imagination, but if you really want to make it accurate and contribute to the real world and the real research, you have to use some techniques, some, let's say, methods, or make it as scientific as possible. Without losing the artistic part, because this is something different. So it was really important to spend time on really understanding and, make it as understandable as possible through different ways. I mentioned some, like we had the sessions with drawings, we had sessions with just talking, with internet, with, a lot of talk, with a lot of different ways. Like she said, I was like saying, okay, you can search for this on the internet, and when you look that, you start thinking of that, and then we had all this communication. So yes, in the beginning it was more like a challenge for me to make it as understandable as possible. But then Mai really got the idea, and I was really impressed because she was doing her own research. And if you look at her drawings, each of them has a background, and I mean a research background. And this is really impressive. She doesn't just say, okay, I'm gonna draw what you said. No, it's what I said, what we said together with Mai, and then what she researched on herself, and she combines all of these things to make the final product. And this is, I think, very important for such a collaboration, and I really recommend it, because you can't just say, I will draw what I heard to this presentation or this talk. You have to really make it as interactive as possible. So definitely, yes, like you said, we explain the scientific method. You explain what data you know from this scientific method. You can say, I have no idea what it looks like, but I know that it's made of carbon, for example. And then you will say, all right, how does carbon looks like? Let me have a look and search for that. And then you start making it even more detailed and more detailed. I think the example with the interior is such an example. You say, I have no idea what in reality the Earth looks inside, but what I know is that it has layers. It has a core, it has the mantle, then the outer part, which is the crust that we are walking. So you start saying, all right, how deep or how thick is one layer, and what is made of? What color should I give to this? What surface? What kind of texture? And all these things are important and blending into the final drawing.
Wow, that's really incredible. Honestly. So give us some insights on the concept that you are developing, the concept of the enhanced version of reality.
And yeah, because this enhanced version of reality is something that really, derived and came out of our collaborations, because we have been working on different concepts related to astronomy and science. So what we have been realizing through that is that many times as humans, we are really limited. And sometimes if on science you're working with these limitations and, narrow-minded and say, I know that this looks, what it can be something else. It's just what I see. It's just my result. This is really a limitation for our, let's say, for our lives and for our lives in connection with the universe. So we definitely know that there are so many things out there that we don't know how they look like, or we have no idea about their deep nature. And this is something we have to admit as humans, and then also as scientists, that we don't know many things, and we have to be really like modest when we are researching and really open-minded. So when, for example, we are discussing something and I'm saying, this planet looks like it's made of just water. And May comes and say, yeah, but we haven't seen and we don't know how a planet looks like that is made of water. If you're just narrow mind, I'm saying really a very simple example and say, just make it blue. That's all. This is quite just like make a sphere that is blue color and that's all because water is blue. Yeah, but this is very narrow-minded, as I said, because what it could be, it could have like other parts like that are different colors, it could have variations, different temperatures, all these things that you look as scientists, but then you say, okay, but I cannot, it's really complicated, so just make it as simple as possible. And you say, you're realizing that you're then really limited and narrow-minded if you make it really simplistic. So we have to admit that we are really, very like limited as humans, and our senses, we don't see everything. And sometimes I realize with Mai that she draws something, she paints something, and say, wow, okay, I didn't imagine it like that, but now that you made it in this way and you explained why you made it in this way, and it really is consistent with science, it's not inconsistent, it agrees, then it really opened my mind and said, okay, yes, it could be like that, you're right. So I'm just saying that I believe that if we would work more with art and, this holistic way of accessing and looking at things, we would really had a different perspective about the world. And this is the enhanced version of reality.
I'm quite curious, were there any photographic techniques involved while you were mapping or locating these exoplanets? Anna.
Photography. Interesting. I think we have been using definitely a lot of images, like or drawings, diagrams, figures that we're also using in science. Then photography, I would say that is mostly part of the processing, like when, for example, Mai was drawing something as a beginning, as a thought, she always takes photos of the different stages, not only the final product. Because this is as well the interactive part, like if I see something and I start thinking that is not in the proper direction, not in terms of arts, but in terms of science, then always it's important to have photographs of the different stages, so I can also have a look and tell my opinion, and then Mai also can make some adjustments based on these things. So I think photographs are always part of different stages, and I'm sure that Mai will have a lot of different archives and documents with that. And she always keeps a record of each stage. And this is also science. I mean, it's methodology. You go back and say, I will adapt or adjust this thing. It was not the best, or it didn't give me the result I wanted. If you just have the final product, then it's difficult to see where you can correct things. So yeah.
Yeah, so like, and before we start exoplanet project, so we tested, how can I say, how art works in science by painting the image of sun. So this is the image of the sun I painted, but so in this image, I combine image of suns on different waves of light. So if we have our eyes perceive image from different waves of light, so that can be sun can be look like that. That's my imagination, but also the photograph is a good difference for us. And also for me, not only the photograph, like for example sounds, for example, NASA records the sounds of planets or sound of Earth, and they publish it on YouTube or some platform. And I listen the sound of planet alone when I'm painting some exoplanets. So like I research about exoplanets, so whether it's water-based planet, how can I say, or I don't know, hot planet, I don't know, whatever. I just research and paints them while listening the sounds of water or the similar planets. So, and sometimes I smell something. For example, if the material of the planet was iron, so I smell iron, and sometimes I taste it, and I just, how can I say, correct the evidence from my experience. And when I paint planets, so these my experience and research so makes my painting more realistic, I think. So I'm using, yeah, so many things. I'm using my five senses, but not only photographs. It's one of them.
Yeah, that's interesting what you mentioned, Mai, that different parts, different methods, different, like ways of understanding things. Because photograph is one way, but then, and I remember this point really like now, it's a really strong memory that we were discussing about, like a meteorite that is made of iron. So you start thinking, you know what iron looks like on Earth, but when you want to put it into a context of a huge, rock, space rock that is made of iron, you're really like struggling because you say, okay, how does it look like? And what is the shape, the texture? What should I give it? So iron is really an example that happened when she mentioned it.
Yeah.
It's really interesting because both the methodologies are quite different, but at the same time, they are very aligned. So I think that is the beauty of the collaboration. We can go on and on about this, but yeah, I think this is going to be my last question. So obviously, you both have mentioned many times during this session about art and science, but I want to know any key moment when you discovered and you felt that the boundaries between art and science have kind of blurred, like any key moments, like a specific moment that you want to share.
I think there are many moments, the one that from what you mentioned, but one from my side, at least, one strong memory when I realized that it's very similar and very common is definitely because we have been working through different projects, not only exoplanets, is when we tried, like to make a rose petal to build a petal astronauts. And it was a project that it was like exactly to make something to put into like a spacecraft for astronauts to make them feel like home. So this is a point that you realize that everything in nature is connected, like, and art is part of that, science is part of that. It's just different ways of looking the world. So I think many moments are strong, as you said. The main moments that are not really showing this blaring is if you're narrow mind and say, no, it's like that. And you say, no, from my perspective, it's like that. So I'm very glad that I met Mai, because I was really wishing to have someone to help me visualize things and all these things that we have in our minds, but are very confused sometimes because we just see the scientific part. So as soon as we started our collaboration, we kept going with more and more projects, and it never stops. I mean, like we know each other now 3 years, and we are just continuing. It's very like nice to have. So yeah, I think the rose petal, we haven't mentioned this project, but it was like a project to make something for astronauts, to make them familiar with home. And this is the point I realized, yes, like science and art, like everything is connected. Like, it's just, you want this connection with nature, and this is the most important part of us as humans.
As Anastasia said, so like everything is connecting, and superficially, so they look different. So everything actually is sharing a kind of root, the same essence. So actually, we recognize about these things. So throughout our projects, so for example, I saw Anna's drawing, painting. That was amazing. It was so beautiful. Just that amazed me actually. So then I found she has a kind of artistic talent and point of view. And also I found my bit scientific aspects throughout my research. Like I just researched more, how can I say, evidence, like using five senses and I mentioned. So, humor is not so simple. We have multiple, how can I say, perspectives and aspects. And that kind of collaborative work makes us more open-minded to our potential as well. So we actually, at the beginning, we started the project as a collaboration of scientists and artists, but following time goes on, the project moved on. So we recognize that there is no difference. So actually, in the modern society, that kind of category is very important. But actually, the relationship between people and people. So the category does no meaning. Like it doesn't matter. So I experienced it throughout our collaboration project. This is one of the most important results for me.
I think this session was indeed interesting, inspiring, and insightful for sure. So, and I want to thank you, Maya and Anastasia, both for doing this for us and kind of educating people about the planets and planets through your project. So, yeah, thank you so much for doing this. I think this will be the end of our session.
Thank you for the invitation, and
Safe, guys.
stay in touch. Bye.
Bye.